The night I slept alone for the first time in 7 years, the station lights dimmed automatically at 2300 hours, just like they always did. The soft amber glow along the corridor walls faded to a deep blue, signaling rest cycle for anyone still breathing aboard Helios 9. I had never liked the color blue. It reminded me too much of open space, too much like being watched by something that didn't blink. I sealed the hatch to my quarters and stood there longer than necessary, palm resting against the cold alloy. For years, I had shared this room with another presence, the hum of a second heartbeat, the faint rhythm of breathing that wasn't mine. Tonight, the room felt hollow, too quiet, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. Commander Elias Venn, deceased. That was the official phrase. Unofficially, it meant I was alone now. I removed my boots, placed them neatly beside the bunk, and lay down without bothering to dim the internal lights. Sleep had been difficult since the accident, if you could call it that. No debris strike, no system failure. Elias had simply stopped responding during EVA. One moment, he was tethered beside me, joking about Earth coffee. The next, his vitals flatlined. The official report said cardiac failure. My instincts said otherwise. I closed my eyes anyway. Space teaches you to rest when you can. Sleep didn't come easily. It crept, hesitant and thin, like a stranger unsure whether they were welcome. My thoughts drifted between memories of Earth and fragments of half-remembered dreams. Somewhere in that haze, I became aware of something else. Not a sound. A presence. The air felt occupied. I opened my eyes. The lights were off. That alone made my heart spike. The internal lights were set to manual, and I hadn't touched them. The darkness was absolute, swallowing the edges of the room until my bunk felt like it was floating in nothing. Then I saw it. A shape at the foot of the bed. Not solid. Not fully formed. Like a silhouette made of shadow that was somehow darker than the dark around it. It didn't move. It didn't breathe. It simply existed, and my body reacted before my mind could. I bolted upright, reaching instinctively for the emergency panel. The shape raised a hand, and the panel went dead. Panic surged, sharp and electric. "Identify yourself," I demanded, my voice echoing too loudly in the small room. The shape tilted its head. "You are not afraid enough," a voice said, not aloud, but inside my skull. I clutched my temples, gasping. "Get out of my head. You slept alone tonight," the voice continued, calm and observant. "That is why I could finally come." I swung my legs off the bunk, heart hammering. "This station is under human jurisdiction. You are violating a boundary you do not own," it interrupted gently. The darkness shifted, and slowly, the shape resolved into something more defined. Tall. Slender. Humanoid, but only in the loosest sense. Its surface shimmered faintly, like light seen through deep water. Where its face should have been, there was no mouth, only a smooth plane and two luminous points that felt far too aware. "You're an alien," I whispered. "I am an observer." Observers don't appear in bedrooms. We do, when the subject becomes isolated. My stomach twisted. "You waited until Elias died." The lights flickered just once. "Yes." Anger flared, cutting through fear. "Did you kill him?" The being was silent for a long moment. Then no. But his absence created a vacancy. I laughed bitterly. "That's comforting." "Your species struggles with comfort," it replied. "That is why you are interesting." I didn't sleep after that. How could I? Every nerve in my body stayed coiled tight as the being remained at the foot of my bed, motionless, patient. It didn't approach. It didn't retreat. It simply watched, as if waiting for me to reach some conclusion on my own. "What do you want?" I finally asked. to understand what happens when humans are alone. I frowned. We get lonely. We grieve. We drink too much recycled coffee. No, it said. That is what you do when others are near. I am interested in what emerges when no one is watching. You're watching.
Exactly.
I stood slowly, keeping my movements deliberate. You can't just conduct experiments on people. You conduct them on yourselves constantly, it replied. Isolation chambers. Long-duration missions. Sleep deprivation. You call it progress. It wasn't wrong. That unsettled me more than its presence. What happens now? I asked. The being stepped closer. The temperature in the room dropped perceptibly, my breath fogging the air. Now I observe the threshold. Threshold of what? Of contact. Over the next few cycles, it returned every time I slept. Always when I was alone. Always when the station was quiet. It never touched me. Never threatened me. It asked questions instead, about dreams, about memory, about why humans feared the dark when most threats came from the light. I answered more than I should have. Something about its attention felt stabilizing, like a pressure evenly distributed, keeping me from unraveling completely. I named it Watcher, though it never confirmed if it had a name. You're studying me, I accused one night.
Yes.
Why me? Because you did not replace your partner. I stiffened. That's not your concern. It is the reason you are alone. Silence stretched between us. Elias was my friend, I said quietly. I'm not ready to just fill the space he left. You misunderstand, Watcher replied. You did not leave the space empty. You preserved it. That struck something deep and raw inside me. What happens when you're done observing? I asked. Watcher's light dimmed slightly. Then the waiting will end. I didn't like the sound of that. Waiting for what? For you to choose. The choice came sooner than I expected. On the 27th night, alarms blared through the station, red lights flashing violently. Hull breach. Sector C. The shockwave threw me from my bunk, pain exploding through my shoulder as I hit the floor. Emergency AI online, the station voice intoned. All personnel to escape pods. I scrambled to my feet, adrenaline drowning out fear. The corridor outside my quarters was already venting atmosphere, panels buckling inward. Watcher appeared beside me instantly. This is the termination point, it said calmly. Help me, I shouted over the alarms. I cannot intervene unless invited. What does that even mean? Your species insists on consent. The deck lurched. I was running out of time.
Fine, I yelled.
I invite you. Help me. Watcher extended its hand, light spilling from its form like liquid starlight. Then you must understand the cost. I don't care. You will not sleep alone again. The words landed heavier than I expected. Before I could respond, Watcher touched my chest. The world collapsed. I woke somewhere that wasn't Helios 9. There was no floor, no ceiling, just an endless expanse of soft luminescence. I floated, weightless but steady, as if the space itself supported me. You saved me, I said. Yes. What happened to the station? It was lost. My chest tightened. Everyone. You were the only one who remained aboard. Survivor's guilt surged, sharp and immediate. You said I wouldn't sleep alone again, I said. Watcher appeared in front of me, closer than ever before. That is correct. What does that mean? It means you have crossed the threshold. You are no longer merely observed. Light wrapped around me, not restraining, but encompassing, warm and steady. I felt something settle into place, a presence that didn't crowd my thoughts, but filled the emptiness Elias had left behind. We are not companions as you define them, Watcher said, but we do not abandon what we choose. Tears floated from my eyes, drifting away like tiny stars. Am I still human? I asked. Yes, it replied. But you are no longer alone. They found me months later. A human salvage crew, astonished to discover a single intact escape capsule drifting far beyond Helios 9's last known position. I was conscious, stable, changed, though they couldn't quite say how. I never told them about Watcher. There was no need, because every time I close my eyes now, every time I drift toward sleep, I feel it there, not watching, waiting. And for the first time since Elias died, the darkness doesn't frighten me, because I no longer sleep alone. The doctors told me recovery would take time. They said prolonged isolation, trauma exposure, and oxygen deprivation could explain the lingering sensations, the feeling of being watched, the warmth I described when falling asleep, the strange calm that replaced fear. They used words like hallucination, psychological imprint, survivor adaptation. I let them. Some truths don't survive translation. They stationed me on Earth temporarily, a quiet coastal facility where waves replaced the constant hum of machinery. At night, I lay in a real bed for the first time in years, listening to wind instead of ventilation systems. The sky outside my window was wide and endless, unfamiliar in its openness. The first night, I stayed awake until dawn. Not because I was afraid, because I was waiting. You are still listening, Watcher said gently, its presence unfolding inside my awareness like a second gravity. I exhaled slowly. You followed me. There was never a distance, it replied. Only a change of location. I didn't see it anymore, not the way I had on Helios 9. There were no luminous shapes or shadows at the edge of the room. Watcher existed now as a layered presence, woven into the quiet spaces of my thoughts, careful not to intrude unless invited. What happens now? I asked. Now you live. The simplicity of it caught me off guard. Days passed. Then weeks. I relearned routines, walking without magnetic soles, drinking coffee that didn't taste recycled, hearing laughter that echoed instead of bouncing off metal walls. People asked about the station, about Elias. I told them what I could. I avoided what I couldn't. At night, Watcher observed my dreams. You still reserve space for the dead, it noted once. I don't want to forget him. You will not, it said. Memory is not displacement. One evening, standing by the shoreline, I asked the question that had been forming since the rescue. Was I the first?
No.
My chest tightened. Then why don't people know about you? Because not all who are visited survive the threshold, Watcher answered calmly. And not all who survive choose remembrance. The waves rolled in, indifferent and endless. You said you study what happens when humans are alone, I said. What did you learn? There was a pause, longer than usual. That your kind is never truly solitary, it said at last. You carry others within you, memory, grief, hope. When stripped of distraction, those presences grow louder. Some break under their weight. Others make room. I swallowed. And me. You made room. That night, as sleep finally claimed me, I realized something profound. Watcher had never replaced Elias. It had guarded the space he left behind, kept it from collapsing inward until I was strong enough to inhabit it myself. Months later, when the agency offered me another mission, I accepted. A deep space listening post. Long duration. Minimal crew. Won't the isolation be difficult? The psychologist asked gently. I smiled. I won't be alone. Out beyond mapped space, as the stars stretched thin and the darkness pressed close, I slept peacefully. And something unexpected waited for me. Not at the edge of the bed, not in shadow or light, but within the quiet certainty that humanity had never truly been unheard. We were only just learning how to listen.